Hello, this is the Mobile Youth Show. You're listening to Graham Brown, joined today as ever by my faithful colleague, Freddie Benjamin. Freddie, how are you doing?
Doing well, Graham. How are you doing?
Doing great. So, Freddie, we're going to talk about the world's largest smartphone market, which is China. And it's an interesting market because it's different in many ways to other markets in the world. There's some unique qualities about it. Let's start at the top. What do we know about the Chinese youth market when it comes to mobile, Freddie?
That's a very interesting question. China is definitely a rapidly emerging market. Now, I will stay away from the big numbers that a lot of people talk about in China and the size of the market and all of that. But what I want to talk about are two very interesting trends that we see in the Chinese market right now. One is what's happening with Facebook and Twitter in China. Now, if anyone has been
Hmm.
following the news, you know that Facebook and Twitter are banned in China.
Hmm.
But a recent research found out that there are 60 million active Facebook users in China and 35 million active Twitter users in China. Now those are really big
Hmm.
numbers, right? And the way that all the Chinese internet users have found a way to access Facebook and Twitter is through their mobile phones, or very
Hmm.
specifically their smartphones. There's been a big smartphone boom in China. And 70% of all internet usage in China is mobile, compared to 38% in the US and 49% in Japan. And it's
Hmm.
usually mobile apps like Flipboard, which are marketed as RSS readers and categorized in the Apple App Store as RSS readers. But they also allow access to Facebook and Twitter. It's usually through these apps that the Chinese smartphone users are able to access Facebook and Twitter.
Hmm, that's fascinating. So it's banned, but they're finding ways around. But those ways around aren't advertised officially. They're sort of spread through word of mouth.
Exactly. And the interesting part about the story is who's spreading this word of mouth, who's responsible for finding these. And what we found out was that it's young Chinese migrants. And these migrants who move from rural
Hmm.
areas to cities like Shanghai and Beijing for better job opportunities mostly. And these migrants
Hmm.
could be as young as 17 or 18 years old, working part-time, enrolled in a college. And really,
Okay.
a smartphone is, not just a communication tool for them that helps them to stay in touch with friends and family back home, but almost an empowerment tool that gives them access to information that they did not have previously, and that helps them make new connections and find jobs.
Okay, let's talk about the migrant scene in China because this is quite important. In the Mobile Youth book, one of the stories that I wrote was about Chinese migrants and smartphones, and some of the numbers I think will put this into context. They talk about the migration of rural Chinese, especially young Chinese, to the cities as one of the largest migrations in history. And what's interesting, and they talk about it as history, but it's not history, it's happening right now. There's something like 200 million young, Chinese, mostly young, have left their villages and moved to the cities in the last 25 years.
Wow.
That is the size of, 50 Los Angeles being formed as a result of migration. And, those people are moving to the cities and, they're mobile in the context that they've left their sort of communities back home. A lot of them have come without their families, a lot of them single. They have different needs. So how are they using the mobile phones? What are they driving forward that maybe the more incumbent populations aren't doing?
Huh. Well, so far there hasn't been any research on if they haven't posted anything on Facebook and Twitter. But what we have seen is that after viewing, what's being posted on Facebook and Twitter by the rest of the world, a lot of these young Chinese migrants, they become inspired and energized to post their personal emotional grievances, about having
Mm.
to leave home, having to make sacrifices. And the platform they have chosen is um, Weibo. I believe that's how it's pronounced. I'm sorry
Weibo,
if
yeah.
that's wrong. Weibo. And it's really like, this is the voice of China's future, and they're making themselves heard through their mobile phones. Now, a very
Mm.
recent incident is that this summer, the Chinese government carried out a big crackdown on migrant schools. Now, because migrants, they move from rural villages to the cities, some of them bring their families sometimes, and they
Mm.
want schools for their kids, that are affordable and not kind of expensive, like usually in the city. So they started their own schools. Now that's not government approved. So the Chinese government began a big crackdown on them. In Beijing, when this happened, a lot of the migrants, they started posting grievances, and their concerns on Weibo. And this was actually picked up by public intellectuals and TV hosts and even the state-run media. And they all joined their cause, eventually
Mm.
letting the migrant school to stay open, which is like a small victory for them. So it's really proving to be a tool for these migrants to be heard and almost create their own social life.
It's an interesting story, isn't it? Because we tend to find that change is driven by those with the least to lose. If
Exactly.
you're young, if you're a migrant, you have nothing to lose. You've come with nothing, so you can lose nothing. So they tend to be the ones who operate at the fringes and therefore drive forward change. If you look, I mean, if you take a look at the US, we've done a lot of research in the US, and you find it's migrants that tend to be the most avid mobile users as well. I mean, what do we know about the parallels between migrants, mobile use in China, and let's say Hispanic migrants in southern US?
Um, well, with the Hispanic migrants in the United States, one of the most interesting things is that they are the driving force behind um, messenger apps like BBM,
Mm,
right? Because what they found out is that one, BlackBerry symbolizes mhm, well, status in the U.S. economy, and that's the handset of the executives, or it has been the handset of executives in the last decade. So they've been kind of like attracted towards BlackBerry for the status, and as well as BBM, because it helps them to create these little groups of close friends, family, as well as communicate with family back home through
mm.
other messenger apps like WhatsApp, because that's run over the internet rather than the regular SMS, and that's what they prefer. So it's sort of like the shift from SMS to the traditional SMS to the new messenger apps, and that has been driven by the Hispanic migrants in the United States.
Yeah, I find that fascinating. I mean, just to sort of round this up, there's an interesting point here. Is we tend as an industry to look at early adopters and the cool kids as the drivers of fashion and influence, but actually, it tends to be the outliers in society who create the biggest change. And it tends to be those on the outside or those who exist at the fringes, those with the least to lose, such as migrants or have we seen in other examples like Japanese high school girls, people who exist on the fringes of society? So I think the moral of the story really is there. If you look at China, you look at US, if you really want to see change, is don't go to the exclusive sources, the wealthy elite, those who are well established in society, the business execs. Go where the people exist on the fringes, the migrant communities. That's where you'll find the most exciting areas of mobile innovation. So thanks a lot, Freddie, for joining us today. If you want to find
Thank you,
out
Brian.
more about Mobile Youth, you go to www.mobileyouth.org.